GTM UK banking lead at Amazon Web Services. Mark, you're on. You want the music? Next, we have Priya Guliani. She's the CEO at EarthID and Director at Government Blockchain Association. Next, I have Lok Mishra. He's the CEO at UBA, United Bank for Africa. And put your hands together and the music. Next, we have Rana Bhattacharya. Does that sound better? Next, we have Rana Bhattacharya, the Chief Digital Information Officer at Cynergy Bank. We have Ruqsana Nuruddin, Head of Data Analytics and Product at Barclays. I'm going to start with you, Lok, if I may. As a CEO, you have the pressure to balance the need to accelerate AI. But there's also the need to maintain trust, governance, resilience. We spoke about trust earlier in the morning, at least 3 or 4 times. So how do you get that balance right?
Thank you. Should I give you a short or should I give it? How much time?
So you have about 4 to 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay, good, nice.
You can give an answer in between the short and long.
Thank you so much. I think this is a very interesting phase for banking industry, as all of you know, with AI trying to sort of revolutionize the way the banking is done. There was a nice conversation last week where in Argentina they said that you can have AI owning a company, and then we extended saying, can AI own a banking company owned by AI and operated by AI? During discussion, somebody nicely questioned, yeah, that sounds exciting, but what about SMCR? Whom does PRA and FCA go after if there are problems and issues and challenges? Whom do you threaten to fine and whom do you threaten to send to jail, right? So I think it's a very interesting juncture. I would say that there are various banks at various stages of AI journey. There are a lot of big banks who are doing huge number of proof of concepts and experiments and going live in some of the areas. Some of the key areas where we see the application is obviously in terms of operations, customer service, are very obvious choices, but we are seeing it getting extended to the compliance side, the KYC, AML, fraud, that area. Second area we are seeing a lot of work happening is in terms of risk management, in terms of how do you use AI to assess better credit quality of a person compared to the past historical record and only some financial data, taking much more holistic view and all of that. Of course, risk management, many of the areas, including cyber and some of those areas. So I think a lot of exciting areas where work is happening, and the industry is moving at varied pace. So there are a lot of banks who are moving faster, better. There are banks which are still trying to dip their toe and sensing how hot is the water. So in that sense, my sense is over a couple of years, there would be big differentiation between banks which have been able to get the benefit and use AI in a scale and take the benefit of those versus banks which are not able to do so. And just like we had a phase where we said there are digital banks challenging and becoming a challenger bank to old system. In my sense, there would be AI native banks which challenge the old guards. And obviously, probably some of the very big banks and some of the very new banks would have that benefit because they don't have that legacy issues and they can make grounds up, create a new bank with AI enablement. Now, coming to your topic after this long winding introduction, I don't think there is a choice for banks because for banking, I think trust is the most important thing. Governance is very, very important. So clearly, you can't really do something which does not meet these basic criteria, and that's where a lot of effort is going on. So sometimes I do this testing of Chat GPT. So I'm sure a lot of you do. So when you ask a question 3 different times in 3 different scenario, you get 3 different answers, right? And obviously, you can't roll out a model which is not fully validated, tested, and is certified to be robust. Imagine you rolling out a model to your retail client, advising them for their wealth management, and it gives advice which is not really robust, tested, and fully validated. So in that sense, I think there is lot of work and challenges in terms of ensuring that your model is explainable, your model is robust, your model is validated, and you have a human person in the loop because the buzzword is that it's like your assistant. It is not replacing anything. So you need to be there in the human chain. I think, and there are of course a lot of cultural issues in terms of change in the mindset of people of thinking because bankers generally are very, very conservative guys. A lot of them are guys who have been in the industry for many years, people like me who have been there for 30 years, who have seen the banking evolve from a ledger book with pen and passbook and all of that to where we are today. So it's difficult for a lot of people to think of any way of doing which is completely different from where we are. So I think human look will always be there. Uh, and ultimate responsibility will be with somebody to take that decision. But within those parameters and guardrails, how do you design your AI model is the challenge. And clearly, because of these issues, it is not the rollout and the production has been slow. I'm saying a lot of proof of concept, but rollout has been slow. Other way it can work is, and that we have seen it in terms of digital banks, is that a lot of guys who are non-banks, they push the envelope because they can take a little bit bold and different bets. And then slowly it gets tested in the market and even the regulator and people start accepting it as a norm. So that could be another way in which some of these innovation and model can work. But I guess I think there is no this versus that. I think it has to be both, and one has to maintain that balance. Thank you so much.
Interesting. There were a lot of points that you made. Two things stand out very clearly. Long back, I heard this somewhere. I need to know whose throat to catch if something goes wrong. I think that's what you're talking about. And clearly, I think if you are not able to, really showcase this, trust is going to be a problem. And you also mentioned something very interesting, which is AI native bank. I believe I read somewhere there is already AI native bank emerging out of Malaysia. So I think it's something that will be more frequently used for sure going forward. We heard about cloud native and API enabled and all of that, but I think it's going to be AI native going forward very quickly. I'm going to come to you, Ruqsana. And I mentioned this in the beginning when I spoke about data. Data has been a problem for a very long time. We've spoken about data lakes and data warehouses and whatnot. And it's a simple question to you. Data is required for AI. Everyone knows that, believes that. Will AI actually solve this problem? Will it help in solving the problem and making it easier? Or do you think that ultimately it will create a bigger problem for AI to be implemented?
Okay, so I can give you a 2-second answer, 20 minutes answer, and 2 years answer because I talk in petabytes. So yeah, I think I would deal with data, and I won't say that 2-letter word that he asked us not to say. But I think no. My take is no. AI will not solve for it. AI will amplify your data problem. AI will scale your data problem. AI will put spotlight on your data problem, everything your basement, under your hood that you were not explaining anyone. They will embarrass you at the scale. The reason is AI is the automated decisioning. Having two reports not talking to each other, explaining a regulator why your dashboard is saying something else and then the statement is an easy thing to manage. The embarrassment, you will go and try to explain with a human. But when AI is decisioning, it will put spotlight on those data weaknesses and show it will be a national and international news. That's happening nowadays a lot. So yes, it will not solve for it because we never had a technology problem. Data is not a technology problem. We always had good technologies as per the time, right? We had good data, what we used to call it warehousing, then data lake, now cloud. There is technology is not a problem. It's how these banks operate. It's the operating model of the bank that is the problem for the data. And I think if we think about how to solve for it, AI will make us solve for it by doing, I think, the 3 tricks that we've not been thinking about. The number one, think about the data. Think about the data front to back, not in owner of a data for financial crime, owner of a data for a customer, owner of a front end, owner of a KYC data. No, it's the same data throughout the bank, front to back, having a single data product ownership. I think last 18 months I've spent in Barclays implementing a data as a product, which means that you give the respect to your plumbing as respect you give to your loans and deposits product that you sell. And once you start measuring the data as a business product and the value it is giving you, the lineage, the trust, the transparency, the quality, everything comes in because you're investing a capital, you're scoring it as a product, you're having an NPS associated with it, and you have accountability sorted for once in your life for the data as a product. The second thing is, I would say, experience. So, treat like how Steve Jobs probably would have thought, right, on the iPhone. What is the customer experience? He will not going to forgive you if you forget your customer of 15 years and treat him like a stranger when he goes for his corporate banking, when he was a customer to retail banking, right? Have a single customer view, give a single, and same to the regulator. The regulator doesn't, I've been doing financial crime the regulator doesn't, ask you for explainability anymore. They know everything more than what you know about your data. They're going to say, show me consistency, show me accuracy, show me lineage, show me quality, and that they know the exact word, right? So how do you build that trust that everybody's talking about is through this 5 points. that gives you the explainability and the trust. And the third thing is, I think we should probably cannibalize ourselves. If we don't cannibalize ourselves, I think the future of the bank won't survive. So whatever your worst systems, you take hand on it, you go front to back, fix it. There's no upstream, downstream. It's the same data flowing throughout your customer account, products across, and treat data as a product, I would say. So that should solve for it.
Fantastic. I think, you laid the entire roadmap so beautifully. I'm going to, keep the spotlight on you. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. Do you think it's also a legacy problem in the sense that because all the large banks have so much data and because it's in disparate systems, it's becoming a problem? And then in the same note, it's just much smaller problems for a digital bank or a neo bank or a fintech which is starting from scratch.
I think I wouldn't. It's a legacy problem. I come from 300-year-old bank. Barclays is 335-year-old. So the legacy systems that we had was in DB2, and we were punching in machines, and the paper got translated. Now compare that to some neo bank who are coming with digital or AI native banking, they would have advantage over this. But the problem was never. Nobody intended for a bad data. We went on patching it and treating data as a plumbing in the basement. That was the problem with the big bank. And now, because data has become the spotlight, it is becoming the boardroom conversation. The CEO wants the data fixed because that is the price for the AI. So it is the price to win now. So data has become So I think there is advantage to digital bankers, but the traditional banking has come along the way. Barclays has adopted digital. So
makes complete sense. I saw a few of my panelists nodding their head. So if you agree with this, you don't have to add. But is there any disagreement point that you have with Ruqsana? I'm putting
it's going to provoke you.
Yeah.
Exactly. I didn't dare, so I was thinking about it. Should I dare? So there's so much wisdom in this panel, especially when Lok speaks. It's like I just sit in awe and listen to him speaking, and Ruqsana has added so much dimension to this conversation, which probably technology tinted glasses that I wear and a lot of technologists in this room wear are not thinking about those. But yeah, I mean, I do feel that agentic AI is bringing a lot of value into the table, but a lot of scare on the table as well. So it's about, there are some fundamental questions that banks have been asking. For example, who are you? Those fundamental questions are going to be changed now to who or what is acting on your behalf, and are they actually allowed to do so? So because whether or not we like it or not, I think this is what is happening, right? We've all seen movies wherein robots are coming and they are getting rogue and then they're doing their own bits. And I think this is happening and this is going to happen. So the onus on banks and the technologists is, I love Ruqsana mentioned explainability. So the onus on bankers as well as the technologists is to ensure that it's a safe environment, it's a safe technology, and then we have the governance and the guardrails around to ensure that it doesn't go rogue.
So staying with you, so how are you trying to solve the problem? I know you're creating a universal ID. So how will that help?
Sure. So I'll add a little bit more depth into what I added before. So the question that who are you is no longer valid. So what happened so far was that I log in into my banking application, I do the action, and then it's done. Bank knows that, okay, it's Priya who logged in, she did the action, so that's fine. Now with agentic AI, that nuance is getting changed. So for example, I could ask my financial agent to find the best savings account and open it for me. This could happen in the future, not fiction. So, and it goes and does that. So this is a single delegation, me to my financial AI agent. Now there is a really complicated nuance to this. Consider I didn't ask for a savings account. I said optimize my finances. So when I say optimize my finances, my financial AI agent knows a lot, but doesn't know everything. So he has to, or it has to, yeah, I should say it. It has to actually put it to different elements. So, for example, there would be a tax implications check, there would be a mortgage valuation, there would be what is the best product to invest, and there would be one AI agent who would actually be doing the payments. So now my delegation, which was just one to Mark, which was my financial AI agent, has now shifted from me to Mark to the mortgage valuation AI agent and to the other valuation AI agent who would actually finalize, and then to the payments AI agent. This becomes a multi-hop delegation problem. So banks have a new problem to solve. When they had one customer, one application, now they have a chain of autonomous agents acting on, of course, the customer behalf. But how do you ensure that this agent is authorized, this agent is working within the boundaries, and this agent is actually working in customers' interest? So this problem now becomes not of identity verification, it actually becomes of trust delegation. So how we are solving this problem is that you would create a framework. We've created a framework, in fact, which basically ensures that doesn't just verify the identity of the person, it also verifies the identity of the agent associated with that person. What we do is there is a framework that would change the authority, like think a power of attorney. So which would say it's scoped, it's time bound, and it's auditable and traceable. And the final thing that you have to do is that each agent action that are done are actually attributable, and they are again auditable. Because if the agent number X in the chain did something, I should still be able to say X still acted on Priya's behalf and on Priya's interest. So the question changes from who are you to who authorized this AI agent, are they allowed to do so, and can we trace all the actions back to Priya?
That's so interesting. I think most of us wouldn't have seen this problem in the way that you are explaining it and solving it, right? Because in the sense that yes, you know that there is identity theft and there's a real challenge. What happens if my LinkedIn account gets hacked? Get bank account, but even LinkedIn account that could throw me off. But the way you saying it that okay, you just instructed the financial advisor agent to optimize. There's so many things that could go wrong there, and it's just I don't think we've looked at the problem enough to really understand as to what all could go wrong. So I think it's still evolving.
If I can add one thing, so when I think about it, it feels crazy, right? Because when you saw those movies, you didn't think that it was going to happen, and it was going to happen so soon. Last year, when I was here on this panel, we were talking about onboarding, and of course, as identity, I was talking about that we are facing onboarding issues, and look where our issues have come to, and what we have to solve to all of.
Unbelievable. I think the pace of change, as Kevin mentioned initially, it's getting faster and faster. But I think fast is not enough. That word we'll have to find a much faster word for that to really see what's changing, and it's going to be very interesting times going forward. Since the financial agent, Mr. Mark, what would you do if she gave you authorization to invest on your behalf?
I'll make you a lot of money.
Love it.
So I'll stay with you, Mark. Okay. So you come from AWS. Your past. You have built banks. So cloud is obviously transforming banks and banking, and interesting to know whether going forward maybe you would have agents on the cloud that banks can utilize at a click of a button. How do you envisage this happening in the future?
Okay, let's step back a little bit. I've been in AWS a year, so when I talk up here, don't imagine me as somebody who's been a 20-year Amazon person. But think of me as a 20-year consultant, 10 years in fintech. I founded a bank, I run a crypto firm, so I've been in these positions as well. So I'm going to talk about what I see for the last year working with customers, I guess at the front line of the technologies that we're all talking about here. And to your question, I guess, a little bit of what I think the cloud was. And Charles is in the room. Charles built a bank. I built a bank. There are a number of other neobanks that were built because cloud democratized infrastructure. And what I think AI does is it democratized intelligence. What do I mean by that? Let's give you a mental model of what I use with customers of all scale and sizes, and I work with a lot of tier 1 banks as well. So mental models are a thing that we have a lot of in Amazon. My mental model for AI across an organization and what's happening in the world fits into three, I might say four. I'm going to take out of this productivity. So there are agents for coding, there are agents on your desktop to help you do your job. I'm going to stay away from that, from my conversation. I'm going to talk about agentic, and I'm going to talk about AI in other forms. So firstly, agentic inside the organization. Agentic as an AI as a tool for modeling, and AI at the customer and at the interaction point. So inside, and we can dive deeper into agentic on the inside, looks at all the work that we're all doing today. We're building systems, agentic systems, to do things which effectively allow us to get to a speed of conviction. And that's really important. We've all got good examples of KYC, KYB, and increasingly these systems are redesigning workflows within organizations. And there are many benefits to that. There are clearly operational benefits, there are better outcomes to be had, and there are broader sets of customer bases that we can reach in every segment. If I'm a private banker, I can get to a lower set of people in terms of offering a private banking experience. If I'm a corporate banking person, then I can effectively do onboarding in not 48 days, but 2 days, and all of these things now are starting to come true. We have still got a long way to go to follow that road, but we will continue to do that as things get easier and better to implement. I like the middle part, which is really interesting, because this has showing up a little bit of a force multiplier of what I think the neo cloud native banks have been able to do, which is their data has been event driven from day one. And that data now, we're just starting to see signs of it being turned into incredible insights in large tabular models. We're seeing people like Nubank, Stripe, Revolut all put out model papers now which have built foundational transactional models which allow them to build traditional credit models, fraud models, hyper-personalization models on top of them and get really compounding effects of that data that they had. So to the point about data, it is incredibly important, and it's incredibly important to have it at that event level, which is everything. It's every eyeball you've ever touched, it's the button you've pressed, it's the transaction onto the ledger, and I think that is incredibly powerful, and we're going to see a lot of more come out of that. And good stuff in fraud particularly, better decisions in credit, and some super stuff in hyper-personalization. But the fun part comes in the customer interaction point. And this is where the battleground sits. I was part of building one of the first internet banks in the UK. I built a cloud native bank on the mobile app. The UI, the interaction point for customers, is driven by every other sector, and it isn't necessarily driven by banking. Now watch that. What does that mean? If commerce moves to the foundational model into my agent, then banking will follow. It has to follow because that's where customers will be. And you've talked about it a little bit in terms of my agent. How far away are we from that? There's a lot of hurdles to get over. There are regulated conversations starting to happen in foundational models today, whether it's in financial advice, whether it's in credit broking, and all of these things are testing the water. In fact, in the US, there's a lot more going on with open banking connections into foundational models. Robinhood, for example, are allowing certain amounts of trading going on, but they're signaling a direction of travel that for the consumer, I start to do things in natural language. And if I'm doing things in natural language, then I need to be effectively solving for the intent of what I'm doing. We have spent 20, 30 years functionalizing banking. We had a personal relationship with the branch. We moved it to a centralized call center, Then we digitalized it and put it onto the phone to get it out of the call center. We can, in 4 taps of our phone, freeze our card, but we don't know why somebody froze their card. We have lost the ability to understand the intent. And we need to get back to the intent if we're going to bind that trust with our customers. And that is a real hard thing to get your head around, because our world has been about making it faster and really digitalizing it. And we've all been down that road, and we continue to go down that digitalization. But AI needs intent. What are you trying to do is what it's trying to solve. If I've lost if I'm freezing my card, I've lost my wallet. I need you to help me because I've lost my wallet, not because I'm freezing my card. If I'm downloading free statements in your app, there's a reason I'm downloading free statements in your app. I'm probably sending them to another bank because I'm proving my income, or I'm sending them to a solicitor. The intent is important, and the signal is really important for banks to get their heads around. And that can happen at every part of a segmentation model. We have to answer and build interfaces that allow you to do the intent. So I think what we'll find is a lot of banks will start to move to a more conversational front door, because that's what customers will expect. What comes with that then is more generational UI. So I don't want the fixed screen you gave me. I want you to give me data that answers my question. And that's really important, because it's intent solving with the data for the intent.
That's fascinating. I will simply, top it up with a small bit from my side. The 2 magic questions you ask at every single point of time. You ask why, which is the intent, and then you ask so what, which is what action you take. So I think those 2 magic questions you need to keep asking at every single point of time, and you will be able to do a lot better for your clients, I would suppose. I think you bring up a very interesting point. Customer data. We typically tend to think of, okay, what is the classic data that the customer would have, name, address, email, but you're talking of something completely different. You're talking of clicks. You're talking of where are the eyeballs? Did the person actually end up clicking too many times here and there till the person found the right thing? So it's just customer data is.
If you think about some of the technology around graph models, tension graphs, agentic memory, that's coming into deep fraud detection. We're looking for patterns now that we as humans can't build deterministic rules for. It's not a set of rule sets, it's a set of observations that are getting emerged from big, large tabular models over data. And collecting that and having that in a graph as opposed to a static data set for a customer is really important if we're going to do this stuff, and to stay ahead of both where bad actors are going to be and everything else.
So just in case any one of you missed, there was a very interesting word he used. We've known AI as LLMs, large language models. Very soon this word is going to get very popular, which is going to be TAB-FMs, tabular foundational models. Is going to, again, once more change AI going forward. All right, with that, I'm going to get Rana, you into the conversation. I'm going to ask you 2-pronged question. You already have seen some successes, some case studies at your bank where you really managed to get some very key benefits. So that's one part. How did you manage to do that? What were your key success factors of doing that? Second, related to that, going forward in terms of finding more use cases, finding where can AI actually help. How do you go about doing that?
Okay. I guess in terms of our bank, we've got a number of use cases that are live, and we've focused on avatar-based AI assistants, and we started out really focusing on internal use cases for colleagues. So I'll give 2 examples. So we have Amy, all of our AIs and personas. We have Amy, who is our lending assistant, and what we managed to do, we're pretty much a Google Cloud shop, and we do in-house engineering as well. But what we've done is basically with AIM, we've got integrations into things like Companies House, Land Registry, etc. And we are using the assistant, for example, for our relationship managers to basically accelerate due diligence, effectively draft the credit memo, and use that capability across the organisation for new business, for the credit risk team to actually also interrogate, evaluate credit memos that are coming through, etc. And what we found is basically quite a large time saving, where some of our processes go from like 10 days to 2 days, right? We're not allowing the AI to make decisions, rather it's used for productivity gains, but the human is ultimately accountable. And I think for a long time, going back to some of the discussions we've had already, we're going to have bank colleagues showing that accountability and reviewing and rubber stamping and making the actual decisions going forward. But we're kind of evolving AIM to be more functionally rich. So we started, I would say, part of the lending process, and we're kind of expanding it out as well. And we've integrated AIM into our kind of onboarding platforms, etc., so that it's more seamless to our colleagues to go from prospect of a deal, doing the due diligence, doing the credit memo, getting the approval, and it kind of flows into kind of onboarding and the drawdown of the loan. The other use case, I guess it's worth talking about, is something we call Buzz. And Buzz is basically another avatar-based AI assistant, which is for our people team. And the whole premise of that is basically we wanted to free up time within the people team so they could focus on more high-value activities rather than answering everyday questions, which are policy-related or could be related to, let's say, how many holidays do I have left, etc. So it's a self-service model where a colleague can go and ask Buzz a question. It could be like, I've been invited to jury service. What does that mean? What do I need to do within the bank to get approval? You get that view, links to the policies if you want reference. You kind of go, well, how many days of holiday do I have left? How many days of holiday do I have entitled to? What's parental leave entitlements within the organisation? Again, it kind of simplifies that interaction. And for each of these use cases, upfront what we try to do is basically articulate and measure, is it working effectively, right? So, for example, for Buzz, it's probably easy one to kind of articulate. We previously had an inbox where basically colleagues could fire in questions for the people team to reply to. So we're measuring the number of emails going through it and looking at the top of it. And also we've built in things like rate me functionality within the assistant. So it kind of asks for feedback and kind of like a star rating, etc. So we kind of measure how that's adapting and then learn from that experience and then evolve it into our kind of like fortnightly release cycles. But I think what we're trying to do is basically across the bank, we've got a series of AI-based avatars that are going to be launched this year. And we're kind of going into each of the key business areas and trying to understand what are some of their key processes and which ones are more labour intensive and can benefit from AI. I think the challenges there is basically you quite clearly zero into a particular area of a process, but not the whole process. But I think to get the real value out of leveraging AI, it has to be looking at the whole end-to-end process, because you have a danger of basically effectively using AI as a tool just to automate what you have today, rather than reimagine the process of the future. And that's kind of quite important, because if you kind of think about, a decade ago, or from a decade ago, a lot of banks were heavily investing in digitizing processes, right? And more or less that was really digitizing the process they had rather than kind of forward-looking process. And some of the barriers you had then were basically, the cost of digitalization is a barrier, right? But if you look at the AI technology now, in about 10 seconds, you can upload a document and ask a question about that document to the AI to get an answer, right? And if you go back 10 years ago, if you were to actually try and build that, that will cost you thousands and thousands of pounds to take amount of time. Probably cost more than a few £1,000s, right? And so the technology is allowing you to innovate because some of the barriers you had in the past around cost and speed are removed. And because the whole natural language piece as well, it's not like you need a lot of people that are skilled to a certain level. Of course, some of the use cases I mentioned, they are developed within our engineering team, but there's a lot of AI being used within the bank, which is basically in the hands of the everyday colleagues as well. And so you have to kind of balance that in terms of using everyday AI available to colleagues like Copilot versus what you're going to engineer within the organisation as well. But we are spending a lot of focus on trying to understand the processes and how best to reimagine those processes to get value. But one other point, I just through the panel we talked about, I think Ruqsana's point as well about data. Data is key, but quite often you could actually use AI to support you cleaning up your data as well. Because I think Mark was mentioning about observations, right? It's not about rules of this field has to be this characters or whatever, right? But AI can learn across your data set and you can create data quality rules. So one of the things we've been doing, injecting data quality rules to basically, everyone does data cleanup activities, but after you've cleaned up, how do you make sure you stay clean, right? So AI has a role to play in that world as well.
I think AI has a role to play, and I have taken all the legacy system and migrated it to the next. So my conversation when I started with a no was to provoke this conversation. It's not going to fix your operating model, it's going to fix your data. Of course, you can use it.
Rana waited his turn to actually say
give
we
that
do not
answer.
agree completely. But Rana, thank you. Interesting, the avatar-based AI. I think that's it's a very different way of looking at the same thing, but it's just easier to explain and understand and imagine. All right. I know we're out of time. We are beyond time, but I'm going to ask one interesting question. Actually, I'm going to start with the audience first. Okay. In the next 1 year, how many people think that you will have a AI financial advisor managing most of your money? Okay, then the options are highly unlikely. I'm still not sure, and pretty much done deal. So, how many would say pretty much done deal? Oh, there are a very few hands. People are still apprehensive. How many are still, on the fence? Slightly more hands going there, but how many are sure that's not going to happen in the next 1 year? Oh, wow, it's an overwhelming majority. And I'm going to put the same question to the panel. Where are you? Unlikely, maybe, highly likely. One word. Unlikely.
I think there are a lot of hurdles to
No, one word.
If I lived in the US, yes.
That's more than one word, but I'll take that. Priya.
So I'm positive, but not in 1 year.
Okay, so basically she's saying that I'm positive, but with not my money, somebody else. Look. Okay, so the pace of change is just getting accelerated. You don't think it's going to happen in 1 year. I think it's going to happen in 1 year. I gave my answer. Rana.
I think I'll take recommendations, but I won't move money. Let the decision happen via AI.
So somebody else's money, you will try that first, and if it works, then you jump in.
I'll take a recommendation and I'll choose.
But I can see that everyone is positive. Ruqsana.
I think it is likely because nothing's stopping it, but the regulators, like you said, right, maybe in US, but not in UK yet.
Okay, got it. On that highly positive note, that we are still slightly further away from having financial advisors as agents. I'm saying positive notes because it's giving us some more time to adapt and change. On that note, thank you so much for being generous with your insights.